Hi, friends, it's Melinda Jackson here, Unhinged founder. Let's go. Today, we're talking to Stephanie and Tisha from TheraFriends, and they are doing like really incredible things here in the Raleigh area. They're a nonprofit, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. We'll jump right in.
Providers are not benefiting from insurance. It is insurance that is benefiting from insurance.
You just want to help your clients. You just want to help your patients, but then you have to deal with all this red tape.
We actually had to start services and start doing things, and we had to start paying therapists before we actually could get funding.
It's more expensive to start a nonprofit than a regular business.
Through our nonprofit, we get to make those decisions for the families we serve, and we don't have to prove their need to somebody who has no clue and has never laid eyes on this child before.
And Tisha and I really believe that people deserve healthcare. We deserve healthcare. It should be a right.
All right, we have Stephanie and Tisha here today. Stephanie, go ahead and get us started and give us your elevator pitch, your bio.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Hall. I'm an occupational therapist and co-founder of TheraFriends Community Partnership, along with Tisha Shah, which you'll hear from in just a second. And I currently have my own private practice here in the Triangle area. Now let me introduce Tisha.
Hi, I'm Tisha Shah. I'm a speech language pathologist, the other co-founder of TheraFriends with Stephanie. I had a private practice years ago. I co-founded with two other partners, and since then have just been contracting myself for the last, 15 years or something. And until 3 years ago when Stephanie and I decided to launch this crazy idea.
Why don't you both tell me how you got started in this field? Because it's something I know exists, but I don't even know how one chooses this career path.
I feel like when it comes to occupational therapy, people are like, oh yeah, is that physical therapy? Is that speech therapy? And it's not, and it is, right? So I did undergrad psychology. That was my background. I was looking into, how people think and work and function. And I thought that was very interesting. I also started studying animals and cognition. So learning and doing things and how you do these things, and it's very interesting to me. But then when you come out with a psychology degree, you don't have a career, so you have to keep going. You have to find something more specific. And I did go for a PhD in animal behavior and cognition. I wasn't into the academia life. It's hard to get jobs. It's a great life. I have lots of friends that are doing it. But for me personally, it's hard to get a job. It's very specific. You have to write lots of grants, fight for money. And it just seemed like an exhausting kind of life for me personally. So I wanted to look at something clinical. And one of my friends was studying school psychology and said, hey, with your psych background, you could look into occupational therapy. They kind of like that in schools. And luckily I got into multiple grad schools and could choose. I chose UNC Chapel Hill, and I ended up going to grad school for OT, focusing on pediatrics. That's what I kind of wanted to do. We study everything in grad school. It's a 2-year program, post-undergraduate. So it's a master's degree in occupational therapy, and learned all about the field. But then when you go out there, that's when you really learn about everything and focus. So that's when I landed on, I love working with kids. I think it's fun. I think you make everything a game. And I like watching them grow and have fun with them. So that's what I ended up doing.
Tell me a little bit about the animal path. Would that have been you would have literally been studying animals?
I don't know if I'm going to blow your mind a little more with this. So I studied dolphins. They're really, really smart and very, very social. They're really fun. And I did an internship in Hawaii, in Honolulu, for 7 months after I graduated from undergrad, and then got into a PhD program at the University of Southern Mississippi, because that's the largest population of bottlenose dolphins in the world is in the Gulf of Mississippi. Fun fact. And so I was out there in the winter all times of the year on these little boats with my friends taking data on wild dolphins. And let me tell you, the first couple times is cool, and then it's not. Then it's just cold and long, and then you have to analyze the data in a lab, and that's not as much fun. But it was really cool. I did get to train dolphins in Hawaii, and that was very cool. It has almost nothing to do with what I do right now. I feel like it did prime me to learn about how everyone learns things, and that's really important, because that's what we kind of teach, and Tisha will talk more about the communication portion of it, but I didn't get into the OT part actually too much. But what OT looks at is daily functioning, which we all do in a capacity, but we're looking at more specifically things that you do during the day that you need to do, that you like to do. So you take things for granted when you can do all those things. And for kids, occupation, what occupies your time, has to do with growth and development and doing things like feeding themselves, doing things like coloring, playing with toys, interacting with others, things like that. So there's a lot of things that we work on with kids. And we think of physical therapy as, kind of mobilizing, getting them moving, and we think of speech and language as communication, but Tisha will go more into that. And then we're kind of the everything else in the middle, but they all coexist though.
Okay, so Tisha, tell us like your career path, all that fun stuff. Like, how did you even know it's what you wanted to do?
Right, because I certainly had never heard of it growing up. So I grew up in the Triangle. I went to NC State, and while I was there, I was like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And just through, talking to people and exploring that, I learned about speech therapy. I love to talk. I'm very talkative, and I love to eat. And I was like, oh, there's people who have trouble talking and eating. I want to help those people because that would kind of suck if you couldn't do those things. So I thought, okay, I knew I wanted to be in a field where I was helping people or working with people directly. And I just thought it would be devastating if those were two things I couldn't do. So I dug in more, and I graduated with a degree in communication disorders and a minor in psychology. And then I went to grad school at University of South Carolina for speech language pathology. Not as interesting and fun as Stephanie's.
Well, no dolphins, but
there are no
live.
dolphins in the story, right?
You said the part about you wanted to help people who couldn't talk or eat. So like, how does eating coincide with that?
Speech pathologists also work on with people who have swallowing disorders. We use the same muscles to talk that we do to eat. And that's kind of where the pathology part of it comes in a little more too. We learn a lot about the mechanisms of the mouth and the throat and respiration and the coordination of those things and the muscles involved in swallowing as well. So for someone who might have a brain injury or a stroke or some other event or even neurological change or genetic issue, that your swallowing can be impacted. So we also work on swallowing and strengthening those muscles or compensating for weakness and things like that.
I would have never thought about that, but it makes so much sense. Now tell us how you guys came together. Like, what's your relationship origin story?
That's a fun one. So everyone remembers that thing called COVID when we were all online like this. So oddly enough, Tisha and I, for the first, I want to say several months that we knew each other, was like this. And we were trying to form a DEI committee for our kids' PTA, which are all really positive things. We want to make sure essentially that all PTA programming for the kids in a school is inclusive and everybody can feel like they participate and feel like they belong and feel like they should be there. And that's the whole purpose. So whether it's, a cultural thing, whether it's a disability thing, there's lots of different reasons for people not feeling included or that they should be somewhere. So at a public school, you want everyone to participate. So that's what we were trying to do. And as we were talking about, these things are important to us, diversity, equity, inclusion. And then it's like, I'm a speech language pathologist. Oh, I'm an occupational therapist. And then we started talking about being practice owners, because I'm currently a practice owner. She was a practice owner. And we're like, man, it's really difficult in terms of healthcare and access for a lot of people, because we would have families that we would be helping and then all of a sudden they would disappear, or they would ask, can we just be seen once a month, because it's really, expensive or hard on their schedule for traveling and things like that. There are people who had Medicaid and then transportation issues, or there are people who didn't qualify for Medicaid. A lot of people didn't qualify for Medicaid, so they didn't have insurance at all, or people who have insurance, but as we all know, as people who might have insurance, that doesn't mean that they're going to pay for anything, or they might have a limit to what they're paying, or you have to meet your deductible first, which is huge. And so there are all these barriers. There's just so many barriers to getting services, and all research points to early intervention and therapies being helpful to people, being helpful, especially to kids at a certain point in their life when they're young, is a really good time for them to get those therapies, so that later on in their lives, they're doing much better, that they're able to be their best selves. And, that's what we really want to happen. So we discussed, how it's really frustrating. How can we kind of help people be able to access more therapy and supports? And the best idea we came up with was to have a nonprofit. Now, did either of us ever start a nonprofit? No. Tisha was on a board of one. She worked for one. She'll talk about that in a moment, I'm sure, but I hadn't. And so we're like, I guess we'll just do this. Well, it's more complicated than you would think. And actually, the not fun fact of this is actually it's more expensive to start a nonprofit than a regular business, especially since getting your 501c3 and sending in that application is, do you remember how much that was? Is it 600? Yeah.
There was an easier nonprofit avenue, but because we were hoping to run not a bootleg one and one that can sustain salaries and support people, we had to go for the bigger one, and so that is part of that. But there's a cheaper way. What we've also learned is to get funding, you have to show you're doing something, and you have to have a history of doing something. So we actually had to start services and start doing things, and we had to start paying therapists and fund with before we actually could get funding. So there was this chicken and the egg situation that we're still kind of working through in year 3, where, you need funding, but to get funding, you have to have already started programs, established programs, showed success of those programs.
It's not an easy road. But we keep saying we chose this road. We went from fighting with insurance, because that's what I do in my private practice, fighting with insurance, because we have to put it out there too. Providers are not benefiting from insurance. It is insurance that is benefiting from insurance. The clients, and patients, they have a hard time, and then the providers have a hard time. This middleman, they're the ones keeping all the money from all of us. The providers aren't flourishing from these insurance situations. It's very difficult. It's so confusing for small private practices like mine, which is the majority of the private practices in the area are small.
And it's also shitty for people like you who, you just want to help your clients. You just want to help your patients. But then you have to deal with all this red tape. And I know my chiropractor stopped taking insurance because it was too much bullshit. My regular therapist started taking, my mental health therapist stopped taking insurance because it was too much. But then when she did, it was like $175 a session. So then I'm like, fuck,
right.
Now I have to figure out what this looks like. And then I had to change chiropractors because mine was too expensive without insurance. So it's it's such a hard spot to be in for both the provider and the patient.
I think people don't realize that on the provider side. I mean, I think we all experience it on the human patient side. And I think there are people who think that these people, the providers are charging these astronomical fees and they're making this big bank. But really, the amount of money that we get back is very, very small. And then we have to pay for business expenses, as you know, that come up, or staff, or our therapists. And I think that sometimes the practices get we get the brunt of the blame. But.
And what I think the general public doesn't know is the hoops that insurance puts y'all through. So that's why so many people are just screw it, I'm not even going to take insurance anymore. Just pay out of pocket. It's not worth it at the end of the day, because they're having to spend all these hours fighting back and forth with insurance. And it's I know my therapist, she's like, if I keep going through insurance, I'm not going to be able to do all the kind of therapy modalities that I want to do that can really help my clients. So it's easier if they just pay out of pocket and we can do whatever we want to help them.
Exactly. And that was our thought too, because because you have to think too, I try to point out to people who just have a regular business versus a healthcare business. I'm I don't get paid for what we already did. We provided the service. We might not get paid for it for a month, 2 months. And that's typical. If you get paid at all. So I can tell you how many write-offs I have every year, because my little business against Blue Cross Blue Shield North Carolina, we're not going to take them to court. There's no protections for us to get what we provided it. It is done. We provided it. I pay my therapist no matter what. So it's really difficult. And so it's an access issue. Mm-hmm. And Tisha and I really believe that people deserve healthcare. We deserve healthcare. It should be a right. It shouldn't be, whether or not you had the luck of being born in a certain place, if you had the luck of being born into a family with money, if you had the luck of having a family to lift you up and be able to provide an education to a certain level, to get a certain, like, we don't think that it should depend on anything. Because if you don't have your health, if you are not your best self, and then you can't do all the things that you're meant to do. And that's just plain not fair. So we wanted to see how we can even it out.
To jump on, Melinda, what you were saying about how insurance makes us jump into, ridiculous hoops that really aren't ethical in so many ways. And with our nonprofit, we don't have to worry about that anymore, which is such a gift. But, there was a time when one insurance company, I don't know if they still are doing this, Stephanie, you'll know, they wouldn't cover things that were based on a developmental delay. Well, a lot of the things we work with for kids have developmental delays. So you're saying you won't cover services that they need just because they have a developmental delay. Or I've had an autistic child I worked with who scored, let's say, like a 30 on a test, and then when they had to do their reevaluation, it was a 40 or something. And they're like, well, that wasn't enough growth, so we're not covering it. Well, this kid is still autistic. This kid still needs support. That's actually a lot of growth if you know anything about the field or this kid, that he actually did quite a lot within that 1 year. But they make those ridiculous assumptions and decisions that really don't benefit the families we're working with. And through our nonprofit, we get to make those decisions for the families we serve. And we don't have to prove their need to somebody who has no clue and has never laid eyes on this child before.
We did change, we went from dealing with insurance companies to trying to find funders. So that is extremely challenging, especially as a new nonprofit, to try to make a case for ourselves. But we always say, like, we feel so much better about this problem, especially ethically too. So, we know that this is the right path. And it's a hard path, but we just know it's a much better path.
And what kind of families do y'all serve, and you do things virtually? Is it only here in the Triangle? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we serve anybody that we have availability for. So we have big dreams for what we want this to look like, and we're not there yet. So we're still on this growth curve for sure. So right now we just have a couple of part-time therapists, and they're only go to certain areas. We would love to eventually have many full-time therapists in covering all areas of the Triangle. So no matter where you are, we might have somebody for you. That is the goal, and we're not there yet.
They could work with anyone virtually in North Carolina. They don't have to be just in the Triangle. If
it just has to be licensed in North Carolina. I'm
That's
assuming.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so virtually we can see anyone in the state, right? And we're focusing on the Triangle. We say, if we grow to that point, the goals that I was just talking about in the Triangle, we are totally open to any other areas as well. And, it would be nice to have access to all of this for everybody everywhere. And so we don't want to put a cap on what our goals are, but right now, we have to be realistic. So right now it's the Triangle and virtually could be the state, but it's anybody who contacts us and we happen to have somebody in their area that has availability. So that's it. It's a lot of variables because we do only have part-time therapists at the moment because we don't have the funds to pay somebody full-time. And again, we said we want to pay people a living wage and what they deserve. We want to be able to have that all happen, and it's just not all there yet. And ultimately what we would like, so right now we have mostly people paying fee for service, so paying for our services. We do charge lower rates than most of the practices in the area. However, it's still way more than we want to be charging. But again, like we said, we're in this I call it the messy middle, where we're still trying to prove the stuff that we're doing to potential funders. So we have to do it this way for now, but we would love for it to be a sliding fee scale down to 0. That's our ultimate goal, so that someone can contact us, say, I need speech therapy, I live in Durham, and we're like, great, we have so-and-so in Durham, and here's our sliding fee scale, and they can say, I can't pay right now, and we're like, that's cool, we got funding for that. We do have little, bit of funding from donations here and there, or little fundraisers we do where we can do scholarships. So we do have on our intake form, would you like some, do you want to find out more about financial assistance? And we have been able to help some families that way, but we want to do way more than that.
We are also kind of touted as a neurodiversity-affirming practice. So I do think that a lot of people find us who are specifically looking for that type of service model. When you were asking about what types of clients we serve, I have noticed we kind of have an uptick on people seeking that specifically because that's not offered everywhere. And the other thing I wanted just to quickly point out too is that I think a lot of people think, well, these kids can get these services at school, so why is there a need for this? And how are you serving kids when and a lot of our kids are people who couldn't get services in schools. I think people don't understand how difficult it is to get those services and how sometimes they're minimal, like you get 30 minutes a month or, which isn't really significant because, and you have to go through a lot of hoops to get those services. They take a lot of time, and also you have to show that there's an educational impact. So if it's not really impacting their reading or writing or math grades in school, or their performance in the classroom, sometimes they aren't qualifying for services, but that doesn't mean they don't need support. So I think there's a lot of people who have asked us, like, well, why would we donate to you guys that when these kids can get services, they have early intervention, they have schools, and that's just not sufficient for a lot of our families.
Yeah, and then you think about any of these people that are in the schools, they're just as underpaid. They're just as overworked.
One of them.
Yeah, and I have friends whose kids, get the special help at school, but like you said, it might be 30 minutes once a month, and it's like that's not doing shit. That's really not doing anybody any good. Let's bring it to a lighter note. Then I'll ask some call to actions from y'all. But can y'all tell me any things that have really stood out to you about going out on your own and doing this for yourself? What have you learned? Have you realized oh God, I am a bad bitch, or this is the worst ever. I'd never want to work for myself again. What have you kind of learned?
I feel like we one of the things I know Tish and I are good at playing off of each other, so she'll come in with other ones. Maybe we're not being bad enough. I feel like we're therapists. So here's the thing. So we're therapists, right? That's number one. We came into this. We want to help people. We really just it's just who we are. We just have that about us. And when you mix business into it, it doesn't go together. It really doesn't go together. And I always say that to people. I'm like, my private practice could be doing a lot better, but I can't do it. I can't do it. It's just people are like, why don't you charge higher rates? Why don't you not take insurance? Because I just can't do that to people. I can't do it. That's not the point. But then it comes to a point where you're like, but I need the business to work. So it gets sticky. And I feel like, with Tisha and I, we have very similar personalities and beliefs and everything, which helps us work well together in a lot of ways. But then when it comes to really we got to do things like this, we're not good at that. We're just not good at that. We're not good at asking for help. We're definitely not good at that. And we've been working on it. We're working on it. We're like, nope, it's okay for us to ask for these things or to, kind of lay down the law. So with nonprofits too, you have a board of directors. It's a different kind of structure than, your own private business. I'm not just making the decisions. We're not just making the decisions. We have other people that need to be making the decisions, and we need to be helping to carry those out. And going from it's our vision and we're the co-founders to the board of directors taking that over is a sticky time. I think the ones that are more well established, it's a little easier because usually the original co-founders might not even still be involved, but we're very much involved. So being like, no, you all can do this, and letting us, relinquish some of that is a little difficult. And finding really good people to come on and volunteer for us on the board of directors, it's hard to do because it's a big ask. And we know that, it's hard to ask people to spend time on something for free that's not going to benefit them personally, even though, you can put it on your resume or something like that too. And we'll vouch for people, obviously, but it's a lot of work. So that's a little difficult. And for us to be asking of people who are volunteering for you, we're having a hard time with that, but we're working on it. Thanks, Tisha.
Yeah, no, I agree. That shift from being an owner to a nonprofit founder was tricky because we feel so passionate about what we envisioned for this, and we are previously, and she still is an owner of a business, so you get to do those things when you're the owner, but when you're the nonprofit founder, you don't always get to, things don't always go the way, we don't get to always make those really big decisions that we kind of envision. And then asking people to do more has been very difficult. And we're always like, we get it, everybody's busy. Oh yeah, we understand, oh, this happened in your life. Sure, we get it, but we're not good at like saying, okay, well, we still need you to get these things done because you said you were going to do them, and our organization relies on that. And also, just fundraising and marketing are not our wheelhouse, and they're very important components of nonprofit. So that's been challenging. We keep trying to find people who are good at that want to donate their time, and not, they're a hot commodity in capitalist America and in the world that get paid a lot of money. It's hard to find people who want to volunteer their time to give us that.
And just wanted to point out real quick, Tisha and I are volunteers.
Oh,
we
yes.
we would love for this to be part of our career path. It is not yet.
Yeah.
So we are 100% volunteering our time
Yeah,
for everything.
we have to have other jobs because even though we're CEO and ED of, TheraFriends, sounds fancy, but we don't get paid, and we have to have another job because we have bills to pay.
Yeah,
It's hard to juggle that, like another job and a nonprofit.
a lot of things came up here for me. So one, I can only imagine what it's like to own a business and then start a nonprofit where I know there's so many parameters and stuff, because I am like fast and loose. I'm like YOLOing all day long. I've had my company for 7 years now. I always say I just fly by the seat of my pants. Like, I'm good at what I do, and that's it. The business stuff, I'm like figuring it out every day. But then if I had a nonprofit, knowing like there's a board, there's things you have to go by, that makes my skin crawl. I'm like, oh God, no, can't do it. Also, my first business coach I ever had, I was like talking to my therapist about it. I was like, I think I just need a business coach. And she was like, okay, well, I have a business coach. Do you want her information? I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like, she's a therapist. It might be cool. So I'm like, great. So then I somehow end up in this mastermind where I'm the only non-therapist, and it's me and like 10 therapists, and we're all getting business coaching. And the thing that would always come up for me is I was like, you guys are too nice. Y'all are too fucking nice. Like, stop. And they would all say the same things that you guys were saying. Like, I know I should charge more, but like, I just want to help everybody. I'm like, yeah, me too. But like, that's not paying our rent. So I was like, y'all are too nice. Stop being a therapist. And I was like cussing these ladies out. I'm like, you could do it, bitch. You got this, But
maybe we need to record you and then just play that on our phones.
Yeah, just holler at me. Just holler at me. I got you.
But we do say, in terms of the funders that we're trying to find, we're like, if we eventually hopefully get paid for what we're doing, and then I would love to just close my private practice and not deal with insurance forever. Would be lovely. It's not anywhere near, but we're like, we feel so much better taking corporate money. I have no problem taking that. So that doesn't make us feel bad. We don't mind. We would rather charge, get that, and then our families don't have to pay. But it's when we're still in that cycle of we have to have the families. I mean, these families are so overwhelmed and overloaded, like just exponentially with all these different things they usually have to juggle. Obviously regular life stuff, and then they have to juggle probably lots of medical appointments. They have, even with therapies, there's lots of people, even if they're coming to their house, they're coming to their house all the time. It's exhausting. It's a lot. So to add more things and then cause financial stress on top of it too is really difficult. So we're hoping that once we get going, and once we have that sliding fee scale firmly in place for everybody, that it'll be a lot easier, because we really need to break down a lot of these barriers for people. And we also want to provide more support. We like to stay in contact with people in the community, be like, what do you need from us? Because just because we're professionals on the professional side doesn't mean we don't know what you need. We can guess, but why? Like, we want to hear from you. So we want to hear from the community. We want to know what people need so we can try to see if we can provide those things. Like, we were trying to do some caregiver support. We do a lot of education too, by the way. That's something that we're really passionate about. We want to educate the community on inclusivity and different businesses or things in the community, to be able to have all different people participate in all things of community life, and just make it very inclusive, have people understand where everybody's coming from. So we do education on that. We do reach out to people. We've done it for the hospitals. We've done presentations for other professionals. We've done presentations for the PTAs, so we're trying to get the word out there, because once we have an inclusive community, things will come together much better for all of our families. So we have a lot of stuff we want to do.
Well, we can wrap this up, but tell us where everyone can find you. What do you need from us? Pie in the sky, like if somebody's listening and they want to help, what can they do?
You can find us at TheraFriendsCommunity.org is our website. TheraFriends Community is our handle for Instagram and Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. Really what we're hoping to get are more corporate sponsorships or families that can give like regular giving. I mean, even one-time donations are fantastic. We would completely appreciate that. I mean, we can provide evaluation. There's so much we can do with the one-time donation, but we've been really looking towards corporate sponsorships. We've been looking into grants and things like that as well, but those have so many hoops and hurdles and parameters as well, which is fine, but we would love someone who maybe wants to help us with the process of grant writing.
We're working on our marketing. We just have a couple of brand new board members that we're hoping can fill some of the gaps. But we're always happy to have people who want to volunteer, even if it's not to be on our board of directors. Which all our information, by the way, is on our website. Like Tisha said, TheraFriendsCommunity.org to find out about. If you want to apply to be on our board, but if you can't have that time commitment, we have committees. So if someone's like, I'm really specific, I'm really good at marketing, we have a marketing committee. We're trying to.
I'm really good at social media.
We have a fundraising committee. If we can do a fundraising committee, someone's like, I'm really good at fundraising, or I have a lot of connections, and really, if someone's like, I really have no idea how to help you, well, find us on social media and share our posts. Just getting the word out there. We're not good at that. We're good at what we do. We really believe in what we do. We cannot get the word out to save our lives. We're trying. Facebook has so many, they don't want us to advertise, even though we're making absolutely no money off of this. And we just want to help people. It's hard to be able to share all this information so caregivers know that we're here, because we want to be able to support caregivers. A lot of them don't know we're here. And then anybody that wants to support our mission, believes in what we're doing, or wants to give us input, feedback, or I'd like to see you all do this, or have this program, or this helpful thing. We're all ears.
Or they can just reach out to us and say, I want to help. I don't know how. We're happy to hop on a Zoom and say, let's see, have a conversation. And we can come up with some things. We can always use volunteers in so many different areas. I think sometimes people just don't know what they have to offer until they have those conversations. And then you're like, oh, that's exactly what we need. That would be great. And we know that the need is growing, and the more support we get within the community, the better. That's why we named it a community partnership. We really wanted it to be a community effort to support families and disabled children in the community. And we're hoping that comes to fruition.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Being on a podcast is like the first step in visibility. So there you go. So yeah, you're already doing some of it. Well, thank you, ladies. We'll have all their information in the show notes. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having us. It was nice.
Yeah. All right, friends. How awesome was that? I love two ladies that are trying to give back and just doing the best they can. And I don't know about you, but I am definitely going to try to get involved in TheraFriends now and just help them in any way I can. So you can check out all their information in the show notes, and we will see you next time.
Like and subscribe to my podcast. It's Unhinged. Dun, dun, dun.